my colleague Dennis Aseto. Aseto, take it away.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Ian Keitani. They're giving us the numbers on what it is we are looking forward to as we approach 2027, even as difficult questions continue to be asked there. Just who will be the deputy president, the running mate for President William Ruto, as well as other parties who are as well looking forward to 2027 as they plan themselves in terms of clinching power come the date. These, despite the fact that we also have the court rulings that would have seen Kenya go to elections tomorrow, but that notwithstanding, the court has pronounced itself and actually pushed it to 2027. But then again, the most difficult part is for IEBC to ensure that it does respect the law and also interpretation of the same. We look forward to how that discourse will be taking place. But right now, we shall be looking at the cost of elections in the country. You know, many have said that billions of shillings are being spent. The president has been capped at 4 billion shillings, but many ask the question, 4 billion shillings, where is the cost of who is funding these campaigns? Where is this money coming from? Is IEBC concerned about it? Are they working with other agencies to ensure that these monies are clean even as we are spending these monies during the campaign? And to help us with these conversations, we shall be beginning from the extreme end, constitutional lawyer, that is Ishmael Nyaribo. Karibu sana, it's been a while. Karibu sana. Nema Grace as well is National Organizing Secretary, People's Liberation Party. Karibu sana, the only lady in the room. We are doing better. We are doing better. We are doing better. Karibu sana, as well as Vincent Kimose, National Chairperson, Jubilee Party. Karibu sana. And last but not least is Gitungo Wamwere, Head of Programs, Mzalendo Trust. Campaign financing is a big conversation in this country as we move forward, you know. And that notwithstanding, many ask the question, where is the source of these funds coming from? It has been capped at billions of shillings. But Kenyans are asking, in the current economy where we are saying, pesa mfukoni hakuna, despite campaign promises, where are these monies coming from? And you as a constitutional lawyer, Nyaribo, is this a question that each and every single Kenyan should be asking? Is this a question for IEBC, KRA, and all the security agencies in asking that question, the source of this money?
I think there is no money even anyway. There is no money in the market that should be used to do all these lavish campaigns. Actually, there is no money. That's the truth. If you come to me, you search all over, you will not find money. The average Kenyans, you will not find that they have money, actually. Even average politicians, they don't have money. So I think the question is very timely. Where does the money come from? So there must be a very interesting source where money is coming from. Apart from the public money that goes through the political parties, you know, office, and that you can always see, according to the large you know, parties, they get a certain portion of money, and then smaller parties don't get. Even the money that is supposed to trickle down to, for example, ODM, even if it was a very big party, the government did not allow it to access those funds. So the question is interesting. Where is the money coming from? Is there some laundering going on? I mean, how are people getting money?
Yeah.
So to be honest, unless there are people who are contributing, for example, like you see Sifuna goes all over, is being given some money. Parties like Kenya Kwanza or UDF, for that matter, they are large enough, they are given some money. But I think it's a big challenge for people to raise money and do campaigns. So when you see now politicians lavishly actually splashing money around the country, then everybody is asking, where did they steal it from? Where is it coming from?
Where is it coming from? Grace, then from a political party's perspective, then, whether we like it or not, money will have to be spent during the campaigns, right? And while at that, then one asks the question from you as an organizing secretary, that is perhaps the headache that you deal with on a daily basis. Not to ask what your strategy is, but how are you cracking that headache in making sure that at the end of the day, you're able to compete with the big boys and girls who have these funds in the market or in the country?
I'll answer your question, but let me start with this one because it's burning. I have to start by saying this is what you call budgeted corruption. We all know where the money is coming from. The money is coming from taxpayers. yeah? And it's time we got serious as a people. The money that is going to be spent is either money that is supposed to be in the development budgets today, okay? Or money that is supposed to that will be budgeted after 2027 and then now start being used to pay people back. So as PLP, we're definitely raising money, but we can never outspend the kinds of Ruto campaign funds. And it's not even our intention. What we are doing is making sure that people are investing in the electoral process. And there are very many ways to give into the political process. One, there's people volunteering their time. Voter education. The biggest misinformation in Kenya today is the role of an MP. So if we spend time through the media, through civic education from political parties, or even just wherever Kenyans are talking, in the churches, in the Linda Mwananchi rallies, in the Purple Train rallies, educating Kenyans what they should expect from an MP. The average MP today has become an expert. They've given themselves a job. They're an expert of policing 215 million on average, which is CDF funds. Yeah. They're letting us down. Our budget is how many trillion per year? 4 trillion. They should understand every single budget line of that, of those funds, of the national budget. They should know how much money we're spending on electricity, which regions are supposed to be getting electricity. You can't just mark time on a CDF. CDF already has its own committee, okay? There's NGAF, there's also a chairman in the constituency fund. Kazi ya MP haiko hapo. You know, where we need MPs is to actually close those loopholes so that we know when money is being taken from a youth fund that is supposed to be a loan that Kenyans are paying back and misdirected to campaigns. That's our MPs letting us down.
Yeah, I want to come to Vincent. Vincent, from Jubilee Party now. That notwithstanding, you're supposed to be getting some money from the political parties because you have members of parliament in the House, you know. But that notwithstanding as well, you must equally be creative enough to finding ways on how you will reach Mwananchi, how you will be able to raise funds for your campaigns. But as she says, budgeted corruption is the word that we see today. It's coming from taxpayers' money. So how do we ensure then that as we approach the general election, that it is a level playing ground, that people do not take advantage of the positions they have in the society to play rough?
Okay, thank you for this opportunity. I want to say that that it will not be a level playing ground.
You're already giving up?
Simply because you see the people in opposition and also the people in the government, they cannot be able to match. That's why my sister said that there is budgeted corruption. Budgeted corruption is not in the opposition. Budgeted corruption is in the government. That is why you have seen the government, and more particularly Kenya Kwanza, they are spending a lot of money in passing around in the names of empowerment. And if you look at the source of that money is the taxes people pay. This is the revenue which the government gets. This is the budgeted corruption she's talking about. So it will not be the same for the opposition. However, there is money, of course. People are now trying to, mobilize resources on their own. If you are a candidate like me, you have to prepare yourself for the next general elections. Of course, in the economy, there is no money in saturation, but you have to look for other sources so that you save for the next.
How are you preparing yourself?
Sorry?
How are you preparing yourself?
I'm preparing myself. I practice law, so I'm making some savings. So every other person, he has one or two, sources of income. To raise, they may not be able to raise that much, but they are preparing themselves. But let me say this. On the opposition side, actually, entirely what we rely on is the political party funding, which comes in. And the political party funding, the money that comes from the political parties fund, is not meant for campaigns. It's meant for, the daily running of the offices. Pay staff, do further, or civic education, and other things, not for the campaigns. However, some parties are lucky enough to, get contributions from their members of parliament and also members of county assembly. But in Jubilee, you know very well, our Jubilee members, most of them, when they came in, they just shifted to UDA government.
Shifted allegiance.
They stopped their contributions. But let me finish by saying, it's high time that the Kenyans also wake up and, call this government to order.
Yep.
Because a lot of money is being spent on basis of empowerment, but there is corruption. Because you cannot carry, right now, the last weekend I've seen, senior government officials coming to my constituency in Nyamira. They have contributed a whole 20 million shillings. And after collecting the 20 million, people now queue and now they start dividing those money. And that money does not come from politicians alone. It also comes from cabinet secretaries. So it's high time that we call these people to order and also make sure that when it comes next year, we send this government home.
Gitungo, Mzalendo Watch has been there to monitor, has been monitoring elections, the campaigns, the results. Pretty much the election process is where you are. But that notwithstanding, now when you look at Mzalendo Trust, the way it is, what are the concerns that you see and how can Kenyans as well plug into these conversations to ensure that they do not partake in an illegality? Because if it is budgeted corruption and Kenyans, because we also hear opposition leaders say, ukipewa wewe kula lakini unajua kura iko wapi, still perpetuating an illegality. How do Kenyans plug into this and ensure that they're able to say no and let's engage into agenda politics?
Well, thank you. And this conversation of campaign financing is timely because just today morning we were having a CSO consultative forum whereby we were having an engagement with election management bodies in Kenya, number one of them being the IEBC. And this conversation came up. Also, I would like to laud IEBC for publishing these regulations on capping the amount of money that politicians are supposed to use. But that does not mean that if it's capped at 500 billion, that is the amount of money that you're supposed to use during the campaign. It's a good starting point as a country because we know our political marketplace has been an arena whereby all sorts of money has found its place, including illicit financial flows. People cannot really tell the source of their money. But again, also on the flip side, capping or also bringing in this issue of IBC capping the amount of money, it's also an issue on their side because the big question that we ask, will IBC be in a position to monitor the money that is being used in the campaign? It's a Pandora's box also because knowing IBC, its capabilities, has it added itself another role that will be difficult for it to implement. But it's important. It is important for politicians to be capped. It is important, far much important for them to even declare the sources of their finances. We've seen even Kenyans contributing to campaign. We need to see politicians declaring the sources of their funds because in this particular area, that's where even our politicians are captured because if you are financed 100% by someone, an institution, then you will have allegiance to that particular person or that particular institution and not citizens. Now again, when we go to Kenyans, this place, the issue of money in our politics is what brings a lot of dirt in our politics. And if we are in a position to sanitize this area by enlightening Kenya, by sensitizing them, maybe at some point to even refuse to take, when it comes to them being given money by politicians, to refuse to take this particular money. But again, we are in an environment where poverty is at a very high level.
How can you refuse that?
It's very difficult. But again, when we talk about politics, looking at it from a perspective of ethics, from a perspective of politics, of ideology, this issue of voter bribery is a problem in our country. But let me also touch on an issue of the incumbent government. So when IBC caps the amount of money that is supposed to be used and the issue of source of your finances, will they be in a position to pin down the incumbent when they use public resources to finance their campaign? So it's a whole issue.
And that's where I wanted to bring in Wakili. Because you see, Wakili, when you look at the election is a democratic right, but it's pegged on a law. it is a legal process that would then give people the right and the power to rule or to manage the country on behalf of Mwananchi. Now, IEBC has come out, yes, and said, these are the caps that you're putting in, these are the ceiling that you're putting in. But I'm not hearing anyone talk about the fact that where we sit today, individuals have been campaigning for 4 years. You know, so even as we talk about the cap of 4 billion, 500 billion shillings, already one would argue some have surpassed that by the fact that they started campaigning way back. So where is fairness when it comes to others who will start campaigning as enshrined in the law when the election process kicks in? And how then does IEBC plug in to ensure that there is justice?
Yeah, so that's why we always say in our country, the biggest problem is governance. You see, you come up with a beautiful institution like IEBC, you set up rules for everyone across the board. Then you actually realize that the government is using choppers and using government money to reach to most remote areas of the country. And when my brother Kemosi says they may be cash strapped, it's not because they are poor in a wrong way, it's because that is the nature of the people. They don't have those, extra funds. And then a Kenya Kwanza government, because it knows Wamera is campaigning and they see his account is having 2 million, and they are having 200 plus million. So they overrun you. So, and that's what they are trying to do even for Sifuna. You can hear that people are talking about, he's not ready, he's young, does he have money, you see. So the problem is governance, where institutions are created, then government or those in power weaponize the institution. So that now, when the institution, when a pro-government person is correct, is wrong, they will not go for him. But when you are in the opposition and you try to spend maybe 10 million in a weekend, they will exactly itemize how you spent 10 million. And then probably you even be disqualified. So the problem of our country has always been bad governance. And that bad governance actually starts from government. Otherwise, Kenyans are very innovative. You know that Kenyans are very innovative. In terms of, if you ask us where the money comes from, what my sister has already articulated, it comes from the CDF. You may want to ask where is evidence and all that, but we are innovative and very intelligent. And Kenya as a whole, except how we are really being mishandled by poor and bad governance, Kenyans are very intelligent. They can tell you, we want so and so. And this is why when Gachagua says, last weekend they were receiving 3,000 and then they switch off the phone, it resonates with people because that's what people want. Now, because the government has shown us that they have money, people want the money anyway. Whether you call it illegal, whether you call it a crime, at IBC regulations, whatever, if they bring the money mashinani, and it happened, Mheshimiwa, you haven't mentioned it, but it happened when the 4 MCAs were being re-elected in Kisii. We all saw that. The government spent money like it's a presidential campaign. True. People ate money. But they said, then in Kisii, you demonstrated this before Olkarau actually, because they picked all non-government MCAs. And yet they had actually really poured money. So I think the problem is poor and bad governance.
Bad governance. Grace, have we weaponized poverty to a point where, because why do I bring in the question of poverty? Because when individuals were campaigning to come to office, there was tutaweka pesa mfukoni. We are trying to make sure that we expand the tax base so that even Mama Mboga is able to climb up the ladder, from bottom going up. But where we live today, everybody, at least those that we speak to, are saying that there's just no money. And poverty seemingly has been weaponized, where we'll come and give you 200 bob, you will go and take that. And then one asks the question, whereas that is the fact that poverty has been weaponized, what is the responsibility of the political class, whether opposition or in government, in making sure that those in parliament, their role in making sure that cost of living goes down is being done? Are we looking at Wananchi then asking that question? When you were in that house, what did you do to make our lives better or difficult?
We need to start holding people accountable and not just naming and shaming. I've worked in the development sector. When I was in the UN, I actually interacted with the European Parliament. When they come to audit us for the funds they gave us, do you know we refund? We refund money up to 10 years after a project was closed, when we realized that that money was used in a way that was not part of the project. So if that's how accountability is applied on us, why don't we do the same with our taxpayers' money? And we start with all these trips. You know, when the president came into power, before they even entered State House, I'll never forget, Felix Koskei released a memo, remember? Declaring austerity measures. And then immediately you started seeing choppers going everywhere. So what does austerity measures mean for the UDA administration? So maybe it's time we started accounting for every single, we can't just leave it as at the Auditor General's report, then go to Parliament, shame a few people, and maybe some people will be taken to EACC, and then the case disappears. We need to follow the money and make sure that it actually comes back. Even 10 years after people have left Parliament, every trip that you've gone to, if it didn't make sense, if you actually didn't attend, you know, a lot of these people actually fly out and they disappear and then they meet again at the airport when they're coming back. That time, UN meetings have gone without Kenyan representation. A lot of decisions are being made. Remember the Somalia case? When Somalia was taking part of our coastline, that was a process that took more than 9 years. We were not being represented by meetings, and I can assure you people were attending. People were being paid serious per diem meetings, per diems to attend these international consultations. So accountability needs to start from the party level. I'm not going to let anyone off the hook, whether opposition or government, because guess what? The people in opposition were in government at one point, you know, those who are older than me. And for the young entrants, like, people like me and below, and I'm happy to see we are millennials are representing in the new voters. So I'm also expecting millennials to represent also in the people presenting themselves for positions of leadership. If we start changing the culture from the small spheres, from the political parties, how are you holding your aspirants accountable? People are bringing money to the party, you know, so where is that money coming from? Because you can't start holding people accountable, ukoju, and yet when you were having those conversations at the party level, you're not asking questions. If you facilitate an influx of a lot of dirty people into your party, you're going to end up with a dirty parliament. The reason why we don't have any useful policies that have been presented by UDA parliamentarians is because they were not required to have any meaningful debate at the nomination level. So, you know, it's garbage in, garbage out, unfortunately.
Vincent, how do we clean the political space and ensure democracy, free, fair, verifiable election is a reality? Because if we're talking about campaign financing that already is tainted, we're talking about poverty being weaponized in the country, we're talking about Kenya pretty much also having run, if not the most expensive, close to most expensive election in the world. Because you look at a ballot paper in Kenya, costs around 2,500 to 2,800 Kenya shillings. What will bring the free, fairness, verifiable elections for us to say as Wananchi, we are satisfied?
If you are talking about free, fair, and verifiable elections through campaign financing, that one you may never get it, because we are now in a culture.
Is it that dark?
Yeah, it will be very difficult. Now we are in a culture where the citizens of this country have been made actually to believe and require money in any electoral cycle. If you look at Orikarau, which is an example, actually a classic example, for the about 35-40 days that the campaigns were in Orikarau, people abandoned their work. Whether you are a farming, whether you are a small businessman or whoever, people abandoned. And most of the people even came from outside. People closed shops and went to Orikarau because there was a lot of money that was being given out. So if we look at a free, fair, verifiable elections, you know, without inducement, without using money, that one you'll never get it. Because the culture is also deep in us. We may want to root it out as politicians, but it will not be very easy. The very first people who could do that, to lead as an example, is the government. Because even if we were to come up with policies so that they can be able to cap this menace, the body that has to implement is the government. The government is accomplice in that. Today, as we speak, the body that gives a lot of money in terms of empowerment, but which is corruption, which is inducement, compromising the people, is the government. Then finally, you may get free, fair, verifiable, elections through systems. If you talk about IPC, which systems have we put in place so that as we move to the next generations, we are able to conduct an election which is free of rigging, which may also not be easy, but you can reduce that. So in terms of money and the politics is like now a child with a sweets.
Yeah.
Yes.
Omere. It's been painted to be so dark and difficult, but I believe that because election is a process. And why do I say it's a process? Because if you go back to the 2017 elections that were nullified, it was nullified based off the process did not follow the law. Now, when you talk about the process of elections begins from the campaign period. Equally NCIC is there, one would ask. There is head speech that is there. There is equally KRA could be asked. So in terms of financing illicit flow of money, is KRA responding to that? Let us look at the process of election and how we fix that to say we have a credible election. Because if the process is dogged, if the process is dirty, there is no way the end result will be clean. Are we looking at it from that light?
Well, election is not a one-day event.
Yes.
It's a long process, and it doesn't end when you vote. In fact, the other cycle starts after you have voted. But let me ask, even from my fellow panelists, because the picture that they have painted, I know the situation is bad, but can't we break that curse? Are we irredeemably bad? I think there is a solution. And if we take this process seriously, like I have said, that this next cycle begins when you have cast your vote. Like the problems that you are facing, mistrust with the IBC, campaign financing, electing bad leaders, it is because we do some of these things in a knee-jerk way. So when we talk about election reforms, this is a conversation that begins when we are almost 1 year before the election. When we are talking about good leaders, of course, it's during the election year. But I think this conversation should be continuous. And I think this curse can be broken by what we saw by young people doing in this country, being not civic apathetic, people who want to be engaged, people who want to ask questions, people who will bring grievances if they feel they are not involved in the processes. So I think from now, and even in the organization that I work for, what we should do is to invest in an active citizen, a citizen who asks questions, a citizen who elects good leaders who will in turn go and build strong institutions, because a country is built by strong institutions. And the problem that we are having at this particular moment, Wakili has said, it's bad governance, and bad governance is brought about by very weak institutions. So if we bring in people who are willing to build strong institutions, I think most problems in this country will be solved, including that big problem of trust.
Yeah.
You see, what is the... Sorry, but I want good governance.
Yep.
And I come out here today, I'm analyzing that I want good governance.
Yes.
Then somebody calls my grandfather from the village and they invites him to come to State House and he gives him 3,000 from public money. I mean, have we done audit? And I can't say it is wrong because my grandfather would curse me. I mean, he needs it and it's okay. And you see now, this is where the problem is. Somebody is very calculative, he's very innovative, then he uses that intellect or intelligence to, throw to your face what you really need, and he waits to see whether you will say no. So it's all a whole issue of good governance covered in several dynamics. If we want to have a nice country, a honest, good country, where my brother Wamana says we cannot be desperate, I agree. But Gen Z especially have been putting this government on toes from, in fact, 2022 until the culmination in that riots. So we are ready to ask. People are asking questions, we are analyzing here. And when they are asking good questions, some of them are disappeared. So I think everybody wants a good Kenya. But the problem is those in power are clinging to it. And Obama here said one time that, must you be the one in office?
Yeah.
So now we have now gone into, now it is 2060. Now we don't care about 2030, if it failed or it did not. So the issue, to be honest with you, for this country, and education is too good in this country. I mean, you visited countries and you appreciate that Kenyans are so good, so learned. We ask the relevant questions, even brave ones. So the problem is not the country, it is not the people. The problem is poor and bad governance.
Our electoral laws, are they strong enough? And if they are, is the problem implementation?
In my honest view, we have very good electoral laws. Of course, every other time you'll come and say, oh yeah, we need to change this, but our electoral laws are good. The constitution itself is good. But the people trying to implement it have actually completely refused or rejected it before. So it becomes very difficult to implement the electoral law. If you are implementing the electoral laws in this country, kwa ukweli, and you see that you are going to fail, in our culture, you will not even implement a damn rule of that Elections Act. So it is the people. You know, once you know where the problem is, actually you can start healing. It is our people, especially the leaders. Hakuna story ingine.
Then, Grace, if we have electoral laws that are really good, implementation is the problem. And at the center of that is the referee who then gives power and gives the oomph to these electoral laws, right? When they are seen to be the problem, how do we go to 2027 with the belief that at the end of the day, we will say free, fair, verifiable?
At the risk of sounding like an IBC apologist, which I am not, but I think we like to, they're so easy to scapegoat, right? Everyone wants to demonize IBC. IBC stayed for 900 days without commissioners. 900 days. So when you start, literally they've just started, and I like what my colleague said. The electoral cycle is not supposed to stop. Because people are being born every day, people are dying, voters are, we need to continuously be demarcating. So we can't wait for now that we have the calendar of elections, then now you want to add and divide wards and constituencies, like it's too late, So that process is supposed to be ongoing. This is a commission that has staff, that has a payroll, and for a big chunk of 2 years, people are going to work without anything to do. Like, you report to work because you're paid at the end of the month. And unfortunately, it's not just IBC, it's a lot of all these commissions. I think they've been operating on less than 30% development budget. So you have all these good intentions. We also like to demonize NCIC, but then you keep seeing them, being given mandate and stripped of power, or being frustrated, or being punished when they're seen to be effective. Then now budget is withheld. So we need to go back and actually say, what is the consequence of a parliament withholding commissioners, even a presidency, refusing to allow constitutional bodies to operate for that long? Because we are the ones who pay for the consequences of that. And we really like to romanticize, citizen engagement. But in this country, in this region, citizen engagement is a matter of life and death. How many people have we lost? We're still in court defending those Gen Zs that everyone likes to clap for, but I don't see many people coming to court to defend them against terrorism charges. We talk about goons and then we quickly gloss over what the actual consequence is. So we need to start holding people accountable for this, because what we are doing is funding post-election violence. It's going to be pre, during, and post-election violence with very dire consequences, which we unfortunately know too well what it could lead to. So how do we need to wait for another Kofi Annan to come and start the process of, where did we go wrong? We already know where we are going wrong, because we are actually leading towards that path, and we're really accelerating towards that path, which is very dangerous. It's going to cost our country. We're already in a region that is very volatile, and we can't afford, to lump on risk after risk. So we need to start seriously having conversations about how to hold offices and individuals are accountable for facilitating what's going to be very dire consequences for
Vincent,
the country.
she just brought in a subject that is very critical, you know, electoral violence, because even Kofi Annan that you mentioned, the foundation came out and said that Kenya is highly likely to end up where we were in 2007 or even worse, you know. But that notwithstanding, you just need to pause and look at what is happening in the country, the statements that are being spewed by different political leaders, whether it is opposition, whether it is government, and one asks the question then, with what it is we are seeing, what must we do to put a stop? Because we have all the security agencies that need to be working together with the NCIC, judiciary, the police, to put a stop to this. What are you seeing and what is the threat in your own analysis?
The stop is very simple. The stop starts from the government. Actually, the violence is being actually spearheaded by the government. If you see the last few instances of goonism, which have rocked throughout the country political activities, most of these people who are goons are police officers in, you know, civilian clothes. They are joining the people who are goons from the members of the public to cause harm and damage to people and property. And as in the recent past, actually, some few days, some of the politicians, especially those ones who are aligned to the government, who have been accused to have participated, you know, in spearheading these or supporting these activities, most of them have not even recorded statements in the police stations. They have been named, people have seen them, but they have not taken action against the opposition MPs. If you are named as an opposition MP or opposition leader, you will be called to the police station to record a statement, and you can even be charged in court. So if we have to stop this violence, it should be, the government should act impartially. Let them not support their own while taking action against the people in the opposition. In Kisii, we had actually one person died, among other areas.
Yes.
And a member of parliament aligned to UDA was mentioned to have orchestrated this violence. He was summoned to the police station to record a statement. He never came. The government never took action. The people or the suspects who were named, they were never, you know, arraigned in any court of law. The same happened in Kisumu, in a church where people attacked the, you know, the worshippers in some church in Kisumu. They came dancing with arrows, poles, and everything. The government never took action. So if we have to stop this violence, because it's going ahead and it's going to damage this country, the president recently spoke about stopping goonism.
Yeah.
Let him walk the talk.
Walk the talk. Yeah. I want to bring you in, even as we come to the top of the hour. One asks the question then, where we find ourselves today, what must we all change for us to say we have a proper election in 2027?
Well, as a people, we have been socialized into that way of mistrust. But one thing, IBC has the duty of making sure that we shall trust it, because it is the institution that we entrust to run the elections in this country. So between now and August next year, it has that role to make sure that we Kenyans believe in its ability, whether it's the sanctity of the voter register, the results, the counting, and even the announcing of winners, managing these electoral processes so well. So it has that role of making sure that we believe in it. And now we, as Kenyans, again now, maybe we need to give it the benefit of doubt and allow it to do its work. But again, the environment that we are working in right now, it's a bit discouraging. If you look at the violence, if you look at the way some things are being taken casually, the government in power not taking some of the security sector not taking some of the things seriously. I think there is need to be institutional dialogue, whether it's the security sector, the IBC and other institutions that help IBC running the election to sit down and come up with a formula of how to run this election well. If it's an issue of security, if it's an issue of technology, so that we have that particular trust.
You see, elections, 2027 general elections is a process that is ongoing pretty much. Once you cast your vote, the cycle started at the time. But that notwithstanding, then all the other agencies that plug into this, including you, Mwananchi, who is the voter, must play a role in making sure that the 2027 general election meet the threshold as enshrined in the Constitution. It is not only IEBC's job, not police, not NCIC, and definitely not political parties, but Kenya as a whole. I want to thank my guest in studio for making it a success at this conversation. That is Ishmael Nyaribo, who's a constitutional lawyer. Asante sana. Grace